gave a rescue signal to an ex-convict. What she did next no one expects. The doors hissed, and her small hand snapped into the sign. Thumb tucked, fingers down, twice clean deliberate, right under the cameras while the man's grip pinned her shoulder like a lock turning. The biker in the cereal aisle froze mid-step. His face shifted from casual to that dangerous calm you only see in people who've lost too much to ever look away again. The girl didn't blink. The man didn't notice. A grocery store in small-town USA just became a stage where two strangers had to decide what kind of people they were. Her name was Lily 8, the kind of kid who memorizes the shape of rain on glass and tucks away details like spare keys. 3 weeks ago, a school cop had taught the help signal in a gym that smelled like floor wax and warm lunches. It felt silly then. Practice 3 times, the officer said. Your hands will remember when your voice can't. Today, with her shoulder aching and her pulse shaking her ribs, her hands remembered, twice steady, like a light flashed through fog. The man beside her wore politeness like a pressed shirt and empty eyes like a habit. Craig. He had a history with her mother, Rachel, nurse, steel backbone, sleep-deprived courage, who once changed the locks with fingers that wouldn't stop trembling. If anyone says I sent them, call me first, she'd warned over a sink full of dishes. Craig had stored that warning and came back with upgraded lies. There was an accident at the hospital. He named the scrubs. He named the shift. Predators love details. They laminate the story. The biker's name was Victor. Ex-con on paper, ex-soldier in his bones. The kind of man people cross the street to avoid and later wish they hadn't. He read the scene like a mechanic listens to a rough idle, a kid too rigid for aisle 4, sweat that made no sense in blasting AC, a cart full of randoms grabbed like he was speedrunning act normal. The exit line mattered most. Fast, quiet, back corner of the lot. That wasn't errands. That was an escape plan wearing coupons. Lily cut through the noise with a look that wasn't pleading. It was precise. I did my part. Your move. Victor didn't square up. He did something worse, for the man. He hunted silence with witnesses. He widened his path, mapped cameras and doors, then detonated a friendly explosion. Hey, man, is that you? Big grin, bigger voice. The kind that drags every eye within 30 feet. Craig stalled just enough to tell on himself. Lily pivoted her toes toward Victor, a half-inch decision only kids and chess players understand. Victor closed in at a talking pace, still smiling, still loud. Been years. And this must be your daughter. His eyes said something else entirely, low and flat. I saw the signal. Move wrong and I'll make this entire parking lot your jury. Craig's fingers tightened. Lily flinched. The aisle listened. People paused with carts mid-roll. The spell was set. Any shove, any sprint, any lie now would echo. Lily breathed once, deep enough to stop the shake in her knees. Then she did the one thing the man never prepared for. She raised her voice just enough for the nearest stranger to hear. Not a scream, just a clean slice through the hum. Mom said never go with you. Not loud. Precise. A sentence that flips a crowd from curious to protective. Heads turned. A cashier put down the scanner. A door buzzer pinged in the distance like a starting gun that wasn't his to fire. Victor stepped between them without touching either. Body a wall. Voice still honey-sweet for the audience. Buddy, let's grab a minute by the front, yeah? His shadow fell over Lily, not on Craig. Craig's eyes flicked to the exit, to the cameras, to the strangers now looking for a reason to be useful. His plan depended on silence. This wasn't silence. Craig kept the smile that doesn't touch the eyes. We're late, he told no one and everyone, shifting his body to block Lily like a human curtain. Victor didn't rise to the bait. He let silence load the room, then aimed it at the nearest cashier with a half-wave. Ma'am, quick thing, lost kid situation. Not an accusation. A label the store could act on without a lawsuit. The cashier's hand hovered over the phone. Craig's jaw pulsed. His plan had one enemy he couldn't outpace: attention. Lily's breath came thin and hot. She remembered the assembly, moved toward light, toward counters, toward names on badges. She slipped a half-step toward the register, so small it could be mistaken for fidgeting. Craig's fingers pinched. Victor's grin widened. Hey man, you still at the warehouse off Route 9? His tone was a net thrown over Craig's next lie. Choose wrong and you're stuck. Craig went neutral. Different job. Right, Victor said, voice bright enough to sting. Hard to keep anything since, you know. He let the sentence hang where only Craig could hear the end of it. The manager arrived, all clipboard and concern. Everything okay? Victor didn't look away from Craig. We're sorting it out. Could use an extra set of eyes to the front doors. The manager nodded at a stalker, who drifted toward the exit like nothing was happening. That nothing sprouted witnesses by the second. 2 teens slowed their carts. A dad paused with a case of water. The air changed, thin thread of protectiveness running through strangers who didn't have the words for it yet. Craig tried gentle authority. Sweetheart, we're going. Lily steadied. I need to call my mom. Flat, simple, a sentence no adult wants to be on the wrong side of. Victor turned to the cashier. Can you page Rachel Miller to the front, please? He was guessing on the last name. He'd heard Lily whisper Rachel under her breath and gambled on common. The cashier blinked, then lifted the intercom. Rachel Miller, please come to the front. Craig's eyes flicked, quick panic. If he walked, he looked guilty. If he stayed, he lost time. Predators worship timing, witnesses smash clocks. He pivoted to charm. There's been a misunderstanding. Victor smiled like a closed door. Then you'll be glad to clear it up right here. The manager stepped closer, soft voice, open palms. Sir, company policy says we verify when a child requests it. Craig's smile cracked the width of a paper cut. Lily's knees shook. She clenched both hands to stop it. Thumb in. Fingers down. Once more, a tiny pulse of truth in a room that suddenly knew how to read. A security guard edged into view, not rushing, not loud. Craig measured him, the doors, the angles. He shifted his grip from Lily's shoulder to the cart handle, a move that looked casual and said, ready. Victor adjusted, blocking the clean line to the exit without ever touching Craig. You still at the halfway house near Elm? He asked, almost friendly. Craig's eyes flared, just a tick. Victor had thrown a dart into something real. Ex-con recognizes ex-con. Or at least the paperwork smell of it. Lily stared at the barcode scanner's red line, thinking of the librarian who said, lines show you where to place things so they don't get lost. She placed her voice on that line. My mom said your stories change when people are watching. It wasn't rehearsed. It was a child calling gravity by name. The manager swallowed. The cashier's finger tightened on 911 without pressing. The guard reached his radio. Craig's plan shifted from walk out to break out. His hand twitched toward his pocket. Victor's tone turned silk over steel. Careful, brother. Whatever's in there plays badly on camera. He tilted his chin at the dome above them. Craig looked up despite himself. A fatal reflex, acknowledging the eye in the ceiling. The teens angled phones just enough to make the point. Even the soda fridge seemed to hum louder. For a breath, Lily felt the old fear, the one that turns your bones to glass. Then it broke into anger, clean, honest, 8-year-old anger at being treated like luggage. She moved. Not far. Just enough to put Victor exactly between her and Craig's right hand. A chess click. Pawn to safety square. Craig felt the room conspire. Polite, relentless. We're done, he hissed, and shoved the cart forward. The crash was small, but the sound cut the store clean open. The guard stepped in. The manager lifted a hand. Victor's body didn't move, his voice did. Lily, stand by the register. She did. 2 feet that made a promise to herself. I leave upright or he does. If you want to see how far Craig tries to push his luck and how this entire store turns into a maze against him, subscribe now. The next step is what defines who runs and who answers. The cart's rattle died, and with it Craig's illusion of control. He scanned for gaps, end cap, bakery lane, fire door, and found every path already softened by eyes. Victor didn't crowd him, he curated the space. Manager, can we keep those doors held a second? He asked, like requesting napkins. The manager nodded to the greeter, who shifted stance in a way that said the doors would open slower than panic could run. Lily fixed her stare on the checkout light, steady, unblinking, red as a metronome, and let it pace her breathing. The officer had said, practice 3 times. Your body will remember when your mind scrambles. So she practiced something new, distance. 2 tiles back from Craig's reach. One tile left, toward the scanner. She was building small walls out of floor squares. Victor prepped without announcing it. "Sir," he told the guard, "mind walking with me to the vestibule? Just need a better angle." He wasn't going anywhere. He just repositioned the board, Victor on Craig's exit line, guard at Craig's flank, manager inside Craig's periphery, cashier with a finger hovering near help. He angled himself so the dome camera had a clean view of Craig's right hand. Predators don't fear force, they fear proof. Craig's voice tried for warm. "Sweetheart, tell them we're fine." Lily felt the tremor hit her wrists, then ride up her arms like cold wire. She remembered her mother's sinkside rule: trust your feet more than your fear. She slid one sneaker so it touched the bottom rail of the counter, her anchor. "I want my mom," she said, not soft, not loud, measured, as if pricing an item. The cashier swallowed and reached for the phone again. Victor's phone buzzed once in his palm, no screen glance, just the tiny vibration he'd been waiting for. He spoke like making weather. "Store radio, okay?" The manager handed it over, and Victor clicked it twice. Somewhere in the building, two employees started a slow drift toward the front without looking like they'd been called. Practice makes choreography look like coincidence. Craig changed masks. "Look, I know how this looks." Victor kept his smile, but his words shortened. "Great. Let's make it look right. ID for you. And a call to her mom from your phone." Craig's fingers stalled a heartbeat too long. He had a phone, of course. The wrong names in it. Lily remembered the librarian's rule about crowded places: pick one adult and stick to them with your eyes. She picked the manager, clipboard, soft voice, steady hands, and asked, "Do you have a staff room?" The question wasn't random. It planted an image, a door Craig wouldn't cross without burning what was left of his disguise. The manager understood and stepped closer to Lily, not touching, simply making a new center of gravity. Victor shifted again, putting his back to the cart so Craig would have to push into him to move it. "I still can't believe we ran into each other," he said lightly, then let the sugar drop from his tone for a half-inch of sentence. "Elm House." The way Craig's pupils pinned said enough. Not a guess this time. A history referenced like a scar. Craig tested the perimeter with words. "Sir, you're making a scene." Victor spread his hands like a host. "Scenes save kids. Private is where bad things happen." He tilted his head at the camera again, inviting Craig to decide if he wanted to be a face on a file forever. The greeter coughed politely. "We, have 2 officers en route. Not sirens yet, just the idea of them moving through the walls like a tide you can't see but feel in your ankles." Craig licked his lips. He had one move left that wouldn't expose him: make Lily move first. "Come on," he said, softer now, like a bedtime story. "Your mom's waiting." Lily lifted her chin. "She told me your stories change when people are watching." The line wasn't bravado. It was a key card that shut a lot of doors at once. The teens with phones put them down and just looked, real eyes, not lenses. The dad with the water case stepped his cart 3 inches to the right, which is sometimes all a community needs to become one. Victor angled his body so only Craig could hear. "Walk away alone, and this ends with you breathing. Touch her, and you'll meet a version of me you won't forget." Not a threat. A future tense with teeth. The manager's policy wasn't a bluff. Last month, after a training no one wanted to sit through, they'd added a silent word over the intercom that meant lock camera feed to cloud now. The cashier said it like a normal page for spill cleanup. A small red LED blinked on the monitor in the office. If Craig ran, the world would still be watching later. Craig's hand finally left the cart. He wasn't surrendering. He was calculating damage. If he bolted empty-handed, he could still disappear. If he fought here, he'd be a headline by dinner. He took the coward's bravery, retreat as strategy, then did something no one planned for. He smiled at Lily. "You always were dramatic," he said, and flicked his gaze to the fire door. Lily saw it. So did Victor. But she moved first. "Now," she whispered, not to Victor, to herself, and thumbed the SOS. A soft chime in her pocket, nothing to anyone else, everything to dispatch, live location, silent call. She met Victor's eyes for a slice of time and nodded once. Prepared. Decided. Not luggage. Victor stepped left, 2 inches, to take Craig's angle to the fire door off the board. The guard mirrored right. The greeter planted. The manager breathed in, long and slow. The cashier held the page button as if it were a hand. Craig's exit line crumpled. He chose the only thing left: chaos. His palm snapped to the cart, sent it skidding toward the teens, and turned to the aisle beyond the end cap: pet food, long straightaway. He didn't get a clean start. The wheels rattled like an alarm. A bag split. Cans rolled. The store itself seemed to say, "Not today." Lily didn't watch him. She watched the door where people with badges would soon walk through, and she did what the officer had taught 3 weeks ago in that cold gym. She kept herself visible, anchored, and loud enough to be found. Not a scream. A clear, practiced line. "I'm Lily Miller. I asked for help." The store listened. And began to answer. Block 4. Craig ran for the pet aisle, choosing speed over subtlety, and the store itself turned into a trap he'd helped build. A pallet jack sat crosswise near the end cap, one of those quiet hazards you ignore until it matters. He clipped it with his shin, stumbled, recovered, and grabbed the first thing with weight: a bag of dog food. He didn't throw it. He feinted, testing how quickly the room would protect the girl he'd lost. Victor didn't chase. He orchestrated. "Lily, eyes on me. Manager, close the inner doors." No shouting. Just tasks that turned chaos into work. The greeter keyed the vestibule. The doors took on molasses. The guard shifted to close Craig's lane, not tackle him. The cashier pressed a button that locked the camera stream to the cloud, and a red LED blinked like a heartbeat that wouldn't stop for anyone's convenience. Craig saw the clock bleeding out. He went for the fire bar. It screamed, shrill, public, the opposite of his religion. The alarm made every head pivot, every foot root. He shoved through into sun and heat, sprinting toward a sedan parked where no one parks unless they want to be alone. Victor didn't spare him a look. He stepped into the vestibule and planted, a wall between Lily and whatever came next. 2 squad cars slid to the curb like they'd practiced in this exact parking lot. Officers moved with the economy of people who have seen worst-case scenarios and would rather not meet another. "Hands," one called, and Craig froze, calculating odds that no longer favored calculation. He lifted his palms, eyes slicing for openings that didn't exist. "Girl?" the other officer asked, already scanning for the small shape that mattered most. Lily lifted her hand, steady now. "Here." Then came the break no one expected to sting as much as it soothed. Rachel. She didn't park so much as abandon the car at a weird angle and run, badge still clipped to her scrubs. Her breath snagged when she saw her daughter alive. Lily didn't sprint. She walked into her mother's arms like someone who decided not to run anymore. Rachel folded, knees to asphalt, hands counting elbows and cheeks and hair like inventory of a miracle. For a second, the whole store forgot it was a store and remembered it was a town. Craig tried for one last story, "She knows me," but the officer's body language answered with policy, not debate. "Hands behind your back." The cuffs clicked, crisp and clean. Victor finally looked at him, no victory in it, just a ledger closing. "Private is where bad things happen," he said softly, as if finishing a sentence they both understood. Craig's eyes flicked to Lily, searching for a crack he could exploit, found none, and looked away first. Proof arrived in layers, not drama. The manager offered the live footage. The cashier handed over the cloud link. The guard reported the panic bar activation. An employee produced a folded sheet left half out of a pocket during the scramble, camera angles from last month's maintenance, a note about the Tuesday staffing pattern, arrows to exits. The officer didn't need to make a speech. Documents do their own talking. Lily, still in her mother's arms, remembered the second drill from the gym: name, ask, detail. She lifted her head enough to speak to the nearest officer. "I used the signal in the aisle." The biker saw. She pointed at Victor. He made people look. The officer nodded, the kind of nod that binds adults to a child's courage as a matter of record. "We saw your SOS too," she added, one eyebrow raised at Lily's pocket like a secret handshake between professionals. Victor gave his statement the way he rode, steady, no flourishes. He recited the plate number, route direction, the exact words he'd used, where he stood when, who was within 10 feet. The officer's pen moved fast. "You de-escalated," she said. "No ma'am," he corrected, "just once. We re-escalated in public." A cashier snorted despite herself, the first small laugh that didn't break anything. Then the first twist paid off in full. Dispatch pinged back. The SOS had attached a voice snippet. Not words, ambient audio. Craig's whisper caught by pocket fabric when he thought the world was quiet. "Don't make me start this all over," hissed next to the rustle of cheap khaki. "Consent? None. Coercion? Enough to draw a line in thick ink." The officer pressed play. Craig shut his eyes. The room's belief hardened from hunch to conclusion. Craig's composure frayed into something uglier. "She wanted to come," he tried, and the sentence curdled at the edges. Victor didn't answer him. He turned to Lily and Rachel instead. "You did perfect," he said, voice getting gentle in a way that didn't apologize for its size. "Your hands remembered." Rachel nodded, tears fresh and clean now, not panicked. "She's her own person," she said. "She chose." Outside, a third cruiser idled while a detective stepped out, already on the phone with someone whose job is to make sure this kind of day doesn't get a sequel. The detective took one look at the printouts, one listen to the audio, one scan of the cameras, and said to Craig what people like him hate hearing most: "We don't need you to explain anything." The officers guided Craig into the back seat. No shove, no flourish. He looked smaller there, not because the car was big but because being seen shrinks people who rely on shadows. He turned his head for one more look at Lily. She didn't give him a flinch to feed on. She turned her face into her mother's shoulder, then looked up long enough to find Victor. "Thank you," she said, clear enough that it would live on the footage forever. In the vestibule's glass, the whole scene reflected back at itself, mother and child centered, employees ringed around like ribs, officers holding the edges, a man in cuffs reduced to the size of his choices. The reflection also caught a small, almost invisible detail on the counter, a flyer about the hand signal taped crooked near the credit card terminal, printed last month after a boring training that had just rewritten how this town thinks about emergencies. Expectant breath pulling the air, cameras still rolling, statements being signed, an ambulance crew stepping in to check vitals. Justice isn't loud, it's thorough. But one question hangs above the hum like a ceiling fan you suddenly hear: what happens after the sirens leave, when the room is quiet again and the people who did the right thing have to decide what to do with the weight they picked up today? The sirens thinned into ordinary noise, and what remained was the work of making a life feel ordinary again. At home, Rachel taped the school's hand signal flyer beside the fridge calendar, not as a warning but as a badge. Lily helped straighten it, lining the corners like she did with her drawings. 3 times, she said, and Rachel smiled with the kind of relief that looks a lot like pride. Therapy started that week. Small room, soft chairs, a therapist who didn't force words to arrive before they were ready. Lily brought her sketchbook and one session in, drew a big hand with a tiny heart tucked under the fingers. "It means come get me," she told the page, and for once, that felt like a beginning, not a plea. The store changed, too. The manager printed a short checklist and called it Frontline Rescue, 2 lines, 5 boxes, 0 excuses. The cashier who froze the cloud stream trained the new hires without sounding like a lecture. The greeter learned to see past friendly shirts and normalized saying, "Want me to call someone for you?" like offering a cart wipe. A week later, a mom pointed at the crooked flyer near the card reader and taught her son the gesture while he balanced on one foot. The town didn't become perfect. It became watchful. Victor kept moving like always, work, rides, a life that doesn't ask for thanks, but the calls started anyway. A middle school asked if he'd speak for 15 minutes. He said 5, then stayed 40 because the kids asked real questions. A community center offered Wednesday nights, and he said yes on the condition that no one pretended this was about heroes. "You don't need a leather vest to be useful," he told them. "You need eyes, a plan, and the willingness to be seen doing the right thing." He didn't mention the old ache that still wakes him at 3 a.m. with his sister's name. He didn't have to. People heard it in the careful way he said public. The case moved fast for something that usually drags. Craig's folder filled itself, the printouts from his pocket, calendar notes scraped from his email, the audio clip from Lily's silent SOS, a trail of searches that read like a confession typed in slow motion. His plea came earlier than anyone guessed, not because he found a conscience but because proof leaves very little room to breathe. He didn't get the audience he wanted. He got the consequence he earned. The judge's words were dry. The effect was wet-eyed relief in a row of seats that smelled faintly of hand sanitizer and laundry soap. Lily's school assembly changed tone. This time, The officer let Lily hold the mic long enough to show the signal without shaking. No trauma trophy speeches, no sensational retelling. Just a small hand tucking a thumb, folding fingers, and a girl saying, "I practiced 3 times." A teacher in the back wiped her face. A janitor leaned on his broom and nodded like the floor was finally level. Afterward, a kid whispered, "What if no one sees?" And Lily answered with something that sounded older than 8, "Make more people know it so someone will." Rachel and Victor never made a big deal of seeing each other again, which is how big deals sometimes get honored. She dropped off muffins to the Wednesday class once, then stayed in the doorway, listening to a room breathe easier together. He stopped by the hospital to install a doorbell camera for a nurse who wanted one but didn't know where to start. "It's not paranoia," he said, finishing the last screw. "It's preparation." He left before she could thank him twice. There was a moment months later at the same grocery store, because life insists on sending you back to the scene, that settled something none of them had words for. Lily and Rachel were choosing apples. The greeter waved. A little girl at the next cart tucked her thumb and folded her fingers, grinning. Her dad did it back, like a game. Lily smiled without flinching. No flashbacks, no shallow breath. Just a code traveling the room like a song everyone knows the chorus to. Rachel's hand found Lily's shoulder, gentle where it used to be protective. "What do you want for dinner?" she asked. "Anything but cereal," Lily said, and they both laughed at how normal that sounded. Not everyone will notice the quiet consequences, but they are the point. A store that treats policy like a promise. A town that learns one tiny language. A mother who sleeps through the night more often than not. A man who stops checking every doorway twice, then still chooses to check them once. A child who understands that bravery isn't loud, it's repeated. If a story needs a villain to feel complete, this one chose something better. A community practicing the part where the credits usually roll. And if you carry anything from this, let it be small and stubborn. Practice 3 times. Look up. Act in public. Build the kind of ordinary that makes monsters run out of places to hide. He tried to destroy Joao, but ended up destroying himself. Joao learned that true revenge isn't to return the harm suffered, it's to achieve the kind of success his enemies could never imagine. If this story moved you and you want more narratives that turn fear into preparedness and courage into habit, subscribe to the channel, because sometimes it all starts with a gesture that fits in the palm of your hand.